as I was culling through her information, it seemed to me she was almost as valued for her EQ as her IQ, her ability to get along with other people.
Well, she actually has both. I mean, I've known her for a long time. She was a professor of mine at the University of Chicago Law School, and she's very engaging, very challenging. She's quite dynamic in her personality, and you see that when she's arguing cases before the Supreme Court. The justices really like her. You should see Justice Scalia, obviously a conservative, and Kagan going back and forth. So the White House sees that as a real plus, and they expect her to be a very effective jurist on that court.
A young Elena Kagan, she clerked for Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and he famously nicknamed her Shorty. Kagan may be small in stature, but she has a big resume and now, as we well know, a huge challenge ahead.
She's had judge-like experience. She clerked for 2 federal judges, one on the U.S. Supreme Court, Judge Thurgood Marshall. She's now in a job as Solicitor General, which is known as the 10th Justice. She advises the Supreme Court on the government's position on these cases, so she's certainly familiar with the role of a judge. She was dean of a law school. She's been around lawyers all of her life. She's certainly the intellectual equal of any lawyer. I mean, she's had 2 of the most important legal jobs in the country as dean of Harvard Law School and as Solicitor General. So she hasn't been on the bench, but she's had a lot of judicial experience.
And one of the last with that judicial experience was William Rehnquist back in 72.
Yeah, right.
So
I guess
you can come into the job with that much experience and do pretty well.
There is a different kind of record, but not a judicial record. I think it's great that we'll have a young person and someone who's not been a judge on the court.
And you've been friends since.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Elena Kagan as a person, but also about the breadth of her experience.
Well, she's first and foremost a brilliant lawyer, a brilliant person, someone who engages everyone she knows at work and her friends in an amazing discourse on any kinds of issues. You know, you saw that she was a great poker player. You know, she's fun to be with. But I think most importantly, and what President Obama saw in her, was that she's a brilliant, pragmatic progressive who is intent on hearing all sides to fashion a solution that works for the most amount of people.
She's incredibly well respected for her ability to bring conservatives and liberals together. Plus, she gives the president someone who can be on the court for a quarter century and be his legacy.
He made the decision for a number of reasons. First of all, she is considered to have a first-class legal mind when it comes to her intellect. He was very impressed. Also, he was impressed by the trailblazing nature of her career. The first woman ever confirmed as Solicitor General, the first woman to serve as Harvard Law School dean. In addition, the president has always talked about how he wants somebody who has real-world understanding of how the law impacts real people's lives. And Solicitor General Kagan has never been a judge, so she comes out from outside what's called the Judicial monastery. She has been a teacher, and she's the daughter of somebody who was a tenant lawyer, and her mother was a teacher. And then finally, he was impressed with her ability at Harvard Law School to forge consensus, to bring liberals and conservatives together. And for all those reasons, she was the pick, and he gave her the news last night.
She's an experienced advocate when it comes to the confirmation process. She's argued 6 Supreme Court cases. She's a very polished and really, really smart person. Everybody agrees with that. So I think that the hearing will go relatively smoothly. There isn't anything on the horizon that seems to indicate it'll blow up.
They're really framing her this morning as a trailblazer, somebody who was the first female dean of the Harvard Law School, also the first female Solicitor General. And though she has no prior judging experience, they say even her most fierce detractors don't doubt her intellect.
Since March 2009, she's been the nation's first woman Solicitor General, the government's top courtroom advocate. A native of New York City, she graduated from Princeton and Harvard Law, then clerked for Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, who she admits nicknamed her Shorty. For most of the 1990s, she taught law at the University of Chicago, where she met a young Barack Obama, then a part-time member of the faculty. She worked on the White House staff of President Clinton and helped guide Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg through her confirmation hearings, while serving as an aide to Senator Joe Biden, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. As Harvard Law Dean, Elena Kagan added prominent conservatives to the faculty for diversity, showing a talent for building bridges that could help her form coalitions on the Supreme Court. As for her personality, she's known for a quick wit and sense of humor, both on display during her confirmation hearing last year when asked if she agreed with a memo she herself wrote 20 years before as a law clerk.
And I looked at it and I thought, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So I looked at it and I said,
you don't have to go any further.
By the way, the last member of this court who had not been a judge before he came here was William Rehnquist, who became Chief Justice.